Hi, folks. I'm Chris Wright for the Grassroots Party. Is America a police state? Isn't it obvious? It's pretty hard to deny we're a police state when we have 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prisoners, mostly black. We're not the land of the free. We're the home of depraved. So why are we a police state? In my view, Presidents Nixon and Reagan initiated a racist war on drugs that turned America into a mass incarceration surveillance police state. Did George Floyd die at the hands of the American police state? Yes, of course. Will there ever be justice for George Floyd as long as the American police state exists? Absolutely not. In 2010, Michelle Alexander wrote a book about the racist war on drugs called The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness. Alexander quoted a survey conducted in 1995 asking the following question: would you close your eyes for a second, envision a drug user, and describe that person to me? The Journal of Alcohol and Drug Education reported that 95% of respondents pictured a black drug user, while only 5% imagined other racial groups. Alexander wrote, law enforcement officials, no less than the rest of us, have been exposed to racially charged political rhetoric and media imagery associated with the drug war. That's right. For 40 years, the media establishment, in support of the political establishment, have usurped the rights of Americans for police power, creating a police state using drug war propaganda showing violent street gangs selling drugs and associating criminal behavior with black folks. The war on drugs has created a show your hands, shoot first and ask questions later police force that is fearful and trigger happy. Meanwhile, it says in Minnesota's Constitution, Article 13, Section 7, any person may sell or peddle the products of the farm or garden occupied and cultivated by him without obtaining a license, therefore. So why are drugs illegal? It's forbidden to require a license of farm products. The only thing that makes drugs illegal is being in possession without a license. I should be able to grow all the coca, opium poppies, and ephedra to make meth, psilocybin mushrooms, and marijuana as I want in my backyard without a license. And if you can cultivate, sell, and peddle without a license, then shouldn't you be able to possess what you're sold without a license? Of course you should. In fact, before this amendment was adopted into Minnesota's Constitution in 1906, the Attorney General of Minnesota said, this will allow farmers to sell their products house to house. Oh, imagine that. Did you know you can grow unlimited amounts of the deadliest drug known to man in Minnesota without a license? Yes, you can grow as much tobacco as you want without a license. However, you can't sell it without a license, another violation of the Constitution. Did you know that you have a right to bear arms? In Minnesota, that gives you a right to sell and peddle certain hunting rifles and shotguns without a license. Obviously, coke, meth, heroin, LSD, and especially marijuana are safer than tobacco, which kills over 400,000 people a year. America legalized the most destructive drug known to man, alcohol, which kills 88,000 people a year. If I'm an adult and I can drink the most destructive drug known to man and smoke the deadliest drug known to man, and I can own a gun, then who the hell are you to tell me I can't consume narcotics? Obviously, the reason to exercise police power is not to protect public safety. The reason to exercise police power is to protect the state's police power to control people, and especially against those who want to take away the state's police power, meaning us. Police power needs to end and power to the people restored. A police state that needlessly kills black people like George Floyd and Philando Castile and white people like Justine Ruszczyk needs to be extinguished. How can we eradicate the police state? How about ending institutional racism? Let's start with our drug laws. Repeal the Controlled Substances Act and regulate narcotics just like liquor. How about obeying the supreme law of Minnesota, our Constitution, and restore our rights under Article 13, Section 7? We have a right to cultivate as much hemp, regardless of THC content, as we want on our farms and in our backyard gardens. But Representative Ryan Winkler, DFL House Majority Leader, is opposed to constitutional cannabis. Representative Winkler wants to legalize cannabis by defrauding us of our freedom to cultivate without a license. Winkler's bill, HF 4632, Regulation of Adult Use Cannabis, preserves the state's police power by extorting Minnesotans of their rights in order to drive up the cost of cannabis, enrich licensed corporatists, swindle revenue, and eliminate free market competition by ordinary Minnesotans, including the most vulnerable, the sick and poor. In other words, sick people and their families will have to buy overpriced cannabis they can't afford from licensed investors who want to profit from their grief because Representative Winkler wants to preserve the state's police power to require an unlawful license. In the last 2 decades, we often think of the war on terror as being the big cause of the surveillance police state. But the war on drugs gets overlooked by playing a key role in eroding our privacy rights. Prohibition has always been a justification for more surveillance powers. From the wiretapping United States Supreme Court case of alcohol bootlegger Roy Olmsted in Olmsted versus United States in 1928, the first wiretapping case, to the 1994 Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act, CALEA, which forced telephone companies to redesign their network architectures to make it easier for the government to spy on our phone and data use. The Patriot Act rarely gets used to fight terrorism. The sneak and peek provision of the act, which gives a license to execute a search warrant without immediately informing the target, was used in 1,618 drug-related cases, 122 connected with fraud, and just 15 that involved terrorism, only 15. Let's carefully comb through and remove every single drug war police state surveillance law. Today, the police state wants our doctors and pharmacists to share a database to spy on us for using prescription drugs. Bankers have been recruited as police state spies to report transactions of $5,000 to $10,000 so they can bust drug dealers. If you're wondering why the $100 bill is the largest denomination, in 1969, the police state retired the $500,000, $5,000, and $10,000 bills due to money laundering by drug dealers. Lately, bankers must consult with the government's blacklists before doing business with anyone. The police use the military in drug enforcement. In the process, the police have become militarized, and the military provides the police with military surveillance. The police are placing GPS devices on drug suspects. They're using military-like drug sweeps of student lockers, terrorizing school children. Here's one I like the best. They insist on an unjustified drug testing dragnet of everyone seeking a lousy job. There's pretext stops and consent searches with drug-sniffing dogs and warrantless helicopter and drone surveillance. The surveillance police state must end. National security is not about public safety. It's about protecting the security establishment's power to control you. People tend to obey the police state because they think they're being watched. If you believe you are always being watched and judged, you are not really free. Wrongdoing in the eyes of the national security police state is not law-breaking, violence, or terrorism. It is anything that confronts their authority, including meaningful dissent or protest. Loyal supporters of the police state have nothing to fear. Glenn Greenwald said it best. It is the nature of authority to equate dissent with wrongdoing, or at least with a threat. In 1971, when anti-war activists broke into the FBI office in Pennsylvania, stealing thousands of documents related to COINTELPRO, They were finally able to convince reporters that political groups and individuals it deemed subversive were being infiltrated, placed under surveillance, and targeted with dirty tricks. Among the dangerous groups infiltrated were the NAACP, Martin Luther King Jr., Black nationalist movements, socialists and communist organizations, anti-war protesters, and various right-wing groups. In 2006, the ACLU revealed new details of Pentagon surveillance of Americans opposed to the Iraq War, including Quakers and student groups. The greatest whistleblower of all time is Edward Snowden. If Snowden broke the law, then he did it to expose the biggest lawbreakers of all time in the surveillance police state. At least the European Union has passed the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, as a result. In Europe, you have a right to be forgotten if you want. Whereas America's GDPR, all of America's surveillance, whether by the state or private capitalists, is legal. They own your data, not you. At least Europe pretends to care about your data privacy rights, and we, the people, obviously should own our own data. And if Facebook and Google want to use our data, then pay us. Otherwise, we're revoking your business charter and you can buzz off. We're not going to be your free inventory anymore, and you should have no right to hand over our data to the surveillance police state without a warrant. We can't let the police state get away with murder. It isn't possible to end the police violence against Black people or anyone without ending the police state. We'll have to end the war on drugs, end the war on terror, end the national security state, end endless wars, end global warming, end fractional reserve bank lending, and especially end injustice. In other words, let the George Floyd protests begin. Thank you.